looks like he's coming our way. Hopefully we can scare him away. All right, I'm back on the island, and just so you guys know, I took a lot of time. Well, I felt like a lot of time because I wasn't doing much, but I ran the camera both by hand and by tripod in the coastal mountains where I've lived for a long time, and where I've had numerous experiences, as well as other people. And I let the camera roll so that I could use that as a backdrop for you guys to watch while I shared emails. So that's what I've done, all right? And then the other day when I went hiking and I took you guys on that short walk, I also let the GoPro run for quite some time while I hiked through the timber. So I may use that today, or I may use that tomorrow. We'll see. But that's what I've done, all right? Now, listen to this. This is titled A Response to the Owlman. Steve, this is Joe in Alaska, and I'm writing in response to the Owlman. As the Owlman suspected, I was an abused child. The details of the disgusting things that occurred to me do not need to be told here. I get away from my, quote, family. To get away from my, quote, family, end quote, I would go into the woods of Minnesota and explore, not knowing the woods were an old-growth forest. Later, I learned many people found the woods too creepy to hunt. While exploring, and later hunting, I would often hear footsteps paralleling me, always to my right and slightly behind me. This was so common that if I didn't hear the footsteps and feel my companion, I felt lonely. I've seen 2 Sasquatch people here in Alaska, my new home. I've also heard 40 to 50 somethings screaming and laughing in a coastal rainforest. Take care, and as always, thanks again for what you do, Joe in Alaska. Holy shit. Okay, Joe, well, good for you surviving, man. I'm sorry you had to go through that shit. I'm sorry that so many people have to go through abuse. It's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. And that's interesting that you felt companionship. That's a good thing, but it also fits in what a lot of people have been sharing. Thanks for sending that in, man. All right, the next one's titled Truth and Facts. And it also says this is a long one. Hello, fellow knower. I just finished your May 6, 23 video. I found you by chance about 6 or 7 years ago, looking at big game hunting. A little bit about me. I'm a 57-year-old little guy at 5'6", an outdoorsman. I can still out-hike most people in the mountains. Friends and I have covered 34 miles in 11 to 12 hours with gear for fun, and my love for the outdoors and my love for the outdoors. Truth. Former Army SCOU, 19D, worked at a prison for 18 years till I had to retire early or lose it because I wouldn't take the jab. Good for you, my brother. Therefore, I am a vigilant person, always aware of my surroundings. At age 8 is when I learned and experienced Bigfoot. I've been interested in them since. I'm not puzzled by why most people won't discuss this subject or look into it. They don't want to go crazy or get called a crackpot, so they are silent. Not sure how many times I got called crazy. You, a knower, therefore a truth-sayer. Owlman is right. The ladies you have met are right. Scott is right. Politis is right. There are 3 primary players in the forest: bottoms, plains, and desert. 1, the Bigfoot, friendly to a degree, very good energy. Number 2, Dogman, not so friendly, even predatory. Number 3, the Wendigo, dark spirit, evil demon. Most can shapeshift, except number 2, most can cloak. There are some in the spectrum that can't. Hence, old stories like the boogeyman, the werewolf, etc. You yourself have read the stories from the emails. I just watched the new vid from Owlman. Is speaking truth. He is speaking truth. You are watched and protected. You saw a clan or family leader. Better yet, he let you know. I, myself, would test Owlman by asking question of him and his forest friend. The name to these people is important. It is knowledge earned. There are things I know to be true, so here we go. Bracket, forest friend, end bracket. What is the first initial of his council's chief? The council's number has changed to what number of representatives? And last question, what is name or the initials of the new member? I am very interested in what he says. If their answers match mine, it will help validate parts of my journey. I have plans to complete my journey this summer. Then I will share everything I have learned, deduced, and experienced. Sorry for this for being all over the spectrum, but for every answer there is a question, LOL. Keep it, everyone. Your truth is out there. I think you might keep at it, everyone. Your truth is out there. Steve, you are of the old cloth. I like that, man to man. Prayer to you and for you all. David, 3 feathers. David, I appreciate you, man. Absolutely appreciate your email. And it's an interesting one, right? It sounds like you've been on a journey and you have a lot of familiar experiences that are possibly being read here too, right? Otherwise you wouldn't have wrote in and shared, I'm guessing. But anyway, keep us updated on what you find out, all right, man? I want to know. We all want to know. Keep it coming. All right, what do we got? This is titled The Arizona 4 Forest People Hierarchy. Hi, Steve, and all the beautiful listeners out there. This is going to be a long one, so bear with me. All right, man, let's do this. I want to make some corrections first. You know my team as the Arizona 4. There are a lot more than 4 of us, so I'd ask at this point and going forward that we be referred to as Team Arizona. This just simplifies things. Now on to the meat of the subject. The information I'm going to give took several years to learn and understand. Sometimes the methods they use to give information is a long drawn-out process, and patience is required and trust must be earned before the pieces start to fall into place. I had stated previously about when one had introduced himself and his mate to me. Quote, I am E. Aiden Gon, and this is my mate, E. Aiden Jen. This was easy to kind of understand that somehow this referred to a title of some sort identifying the male and female. Gon, that's capital G-O-N, being male, and Jen, G-E-N, being female, but the prefix was the same. At the time, I was thinking it was like Mr. and Mrs. Joe Smith. Somewhere around the same time in 2017, Chuck gave me an article to read about the Mount Graham Observatory that the Vatican had built in Arizona and the legal battle with the San Carlos Apache Indian tribe. In short, the Apache see Mount Graham as a very sacred mountain because that's where the Ga'an, G-A-N, Gan spirits of the mountain live. We both found this interesting, and Chuck thought there may be a connection and asked if I heard the names correctly. Gon, Jen, Ga'an, because of how similar they are. I heard my friend correctly because he had to tell me more than once because it's really hard to actually pronounce. I just call him Indy, so that's what I will refer to him as from here on out. Dealing constantly with Indy, I came to understand that he was very high up on the pecking order and was incredibly important. An extreme level of trust was built between him, his family, clan, and myself. And he was always in communication with me, whether I was in the mountains or not. He was my teacher, and I was honored that someone of his stature was, for better lack of terms, always connected to me. The Apaches say that the raven are the eyes of the hairy man, and we have all come to agree with that, and we jokingly say that they are like their drones. Every time the people come to visit, prior to sunset, a patrol raven flies by. This is leading somewhere to stay with me. Oh, sorry, this is leading somewhere, so stay with me. It had been some time since I had heard or felt Indy's presence, and at one point I wondered if I had done something to upset him. So these next chain of events are going to be hard to explain because if you were not there, it's borderline impossible to understand. I was in my backyard tending to my garden and chickens when a very big raven sitting on the crown of my roof started squawking at me. I looked up and said hello. He took off in the direction of one of our research areas called Crazy Town and flew off in that direction. I didn't think anything of it and went on about my business. A few hours later, I was in my garage and heard him again. I stepped out, and the same big raven was sitting on the streetlight just outside, squawking like mad, and he kept looking off in the direction of Crazy Town. That's when I understood what was going on, and I said, okay, I get it. You want me to go to Crazy Town. I called a few of the guys and told them I need to go and asked if they wanted to go. 4 of us went to Crazy Town for a few nights. The first night was super cool. We had several of them interacting with us, and I was told that something important was going to happen the following night. Well, assumed it has something to do with Rob and Wayne because we were given the names of their teacher. The following evening, just as the sun set, we started to notice that there were a lot of them in the camp, outlines of shimmering images encircling us. There were a couple of circles of them all standing almost side by side. My best guess, 30 to 40 of them. I heard mine speak, and my heart sank, and I said, almost in tears, no, no, no. Say that again. And she did, Indy's mate. E. Aiden Gone died. Then they and I have no comprehension how they do this. Broadcasted their collective emotional state on me, and I was too overwhelmed and overtaken by this that I started crying like a baby. The emotions were also felt. Oh, hold on. Here comes the wet, soggy dog. All right, settle down. Don't knock that over. I was too overwhelmed and overtaken by this, and I started crying like a baby. The emotions were also felt by the other 3 that were there, and we are all in a somber state. Out of all of them that were there was both family groups from this area and 2 representatives from my other research areas. I feel so honored that we were treated to such a formal ceremony. There's a lot more to this, but I need to continue on. Hold on a second. On a trip to Crazy Town the following year, Chuck had a communication with one named Tara Gone, and his mate was Tara Jen. Oh, what's going on here? We have the Gone and Jen thing happening again. Now we are starting to put some things together. At this point, we only have a theory about the structuring of their hierarchy. We were discussing among ourselves who was going to replace India and how they decide and how long it takes. Is there a period of mourning that is observed first, etc.? Later in the season, I was back at Crazy Town, and the communication started up again. And what I understand is this. The very highest level of the chain of command / elders / spiritual leader, guide, are called the Ga'an or Ga'an. It's G-A'-A-N. When a male is chosen to be entered in, his name is followed by the title of Gone, that's G-O-N, and his mate who holds equally that position / title carries her mate's name followed by Jen, such as E. Aiden Gone and E. Aiden Jen. This is a lifetime title such as Indy had died. This is a lifetime title as such as Indy had died and his widow is called E. Aiden Jen, and she still carries all the authority she had prior to Indy's death. I'm only scratching the surface of this. As you can see, it gets deep. The Ga'an, as far as we can tell, make up the rules for as far as who they can interact with on different levels and what information can be given, and this is decided on by a person's character, intentions, and level of trust. There also are rules given by the great creator, bracket, God the Father, the Almighty, end bracket. And unlike us fallen beings, they never sinned against God. This was told to us. So, to understand they have rules that they will never break or bend. We think we deserve answers, or that we are somehow entitled to them, as in a way offensive to them. We have learned which topics we can't discuss when the people are around, and questions usually go unanswered. Now, to try and address one of your questions about the 9/11 missing thing. Several years ago, a local hiker went missing, and I saw on social media that so many in the Bigfoot community were saying that he was taken by a Bigfoot. It's another 9/11 missing person. I was immediately told by Indy, we don't do that. Well, the next day, he was found. He had taken a wrong turn and had to regroup after going several miles on the wrong trail. Bottom line, he was fine. So many people jump to conclusions and assume Bigfoot is doing this. It's a question I will take to them, but I'm sure it might never be answered to a level that we can understand or accept. Me personally, I feel this subject is off limits to them because of the answer I was given is simply, we don't do that. Some things in life simply can't be answered, at least by conventional standards. And I've learned in life that when you go looking, you may get answers in a way that might be detrimental. And you wish you never asked the question in the first place. Steve, I want to thank you for your time, and to you and all your listeners. Please stay safe, love one another, and as always, peace out. Kevin Keene, a.k.a. Arizona Squatch. Kevin, I hope I didn't butcher your last name, man. And appreciate that email. Big time. And please keep us updated with what knowledge you feel sharing with us could help people. All right, man? Now, what do I got to say about this? You know, I've listened to enough people, and I've listened to enough people who have studied in depth the missing person thing, and I do believe that the Sasquatch people, for the most part, aren't responsible. You wonder what has happened in the past. I mean, obviously, I understand there are rogue beings out there. Excuse me. But I have heard the term of the Star people. How even First Nations people have said, you know, they wish the Star people would stop taking their people. And I've heard of the Star people mentioned more than a few times. And I've also understand that one main serious threat to us comes from above, and that I do believe is truth. However, on the First Nations end of things, we do have a history of the First Nations communities, especially rural and still today, of acting panicked in a way when they know there is a Sabe person or Sasquatch person near their community, and they do diligently look over the women and the children when that's going down until the being has passed. So why do they do that? Why? Well, I would imagine something not so good has happened in the past, in the past history of the First Nation communities. Obviously, right? The First Nation, the missing person thing. The thing is, you know, especially with the First Nations people, the communities, the rural communities across Canada, the States, it's not just in British Columbia. It's all over North America, where literally hundreds of First Nation women have gone missing, and there's no answer. What the F is up with that? You know what I mean? So I think it's a good thing to reach out and at least just throw it out there through people who are in contact with these other people. Find out if there's any kind of a bone that can be tossed our way. You know what I mean? Obviously, because these cases are not being broken, I'm thinking maybe possibly they are, and they don't want to share the truth with us. Because I have a feeling the truth isn't going to be so settling. That's what I think so far. I guess time will tell, right? Now, what else? Kevin, I was thinking I might be looking into doing an American rip around here fairly soon. We'll see if the dirtbag leader of the States decides to get up to speed with the rest of the world and change the northern border crossing rules. I mean, what am I going to have to do? Fly to Mexico and then hike up and walk right through the border into Texas like everybody else, or what? You know what I mean? So, but anyway, what I'm saying is, if you guys want, I'm thinking I would go down there and I would meet you guys in Arizona, as long as it's not too hot. I'm a Canadian. It would melt the shit out of me. and maybe possibly we could swap some BS, exchange some knowledge, maybe even record it to share with the people. You could take me in the woods or not. I don't have to go to your special place in the woods. If I'm invited, I think I probably would. If not, I would respect that and understand that too. So I do know, I think it's pretty apparent I'm not a hands-on researcher trying to prove anything. I don't need to. The proof's out there. But I do know that a lot of people out there who research or have these relationships, they guard their areas exclusively. I know the researchers get at each other's throats with, that's my research area, right? That's my gifting area, and they go at it. That's not my thing. So anyway, if that's interesting, if you guys are interested in that, let me know. I think I'm game. I'll do it. I'll come and hang out. And if we want to go in the woods, we can do that too, or not. All right, you guys? That wouldn't have an impact on whether or not I came down there. Just saying. Throwing it out there. And if I do this, I'll probably go whip around all over the place, and then I might end up at Dave's place, and we'll do a wind-up video. Maybe. We'll see. And no, I haven't talked to him about it, so don't start hammering on his channel. Now, here's another one. This is titled Owl Man Questions. Steve, quick note and a question for the Owl Man. I've mentioned this before, but I have a friend of a friend who owns property in northern New York between Watertown and Messina. Messina or Messina? Not your favorite Adirondack Mountains. Who needs to deconflict his private war with these nasty things? I've not heard about him in over a year, but here is his situation. He bought an abandoned property in about 2015, but did not live there and would visit occasionally over the weekends to clear brush and reclaim the place from the wild undergrowth. He's having his outbuildings, machinery, and other property damaged by nighttime visitors, especially when he was away, and finally, and certainly unwilling, came to the conclusion that it was a Bigfoot clan causing all the problems and they clearly wanted him gone. Unbelievably, but being typical for New York, the local cops and state troopers soon told him that they would no longer answer his calls for their services and to stop calling them for help. Un-effing believable. But this is exactly the kind of response you would expect to get from the useless sack of shit officials here. Having no choice, he then elevated the situation and began shooting at them, and likely wounded or killed at least one. Suffice to say, but this did not go over well. They responded and redoubled their retaliation to the point where he began using gasoline and explosive devices on his own making to try driving them away. He had no other family living there and had bought the property for his own hunting and fishing enjoyment, but I think the hairy effort won. I don't know what happened since then, but I suspect that he abandoned his property and got out of Dodge. Or they killed him and the New York State joke officials covered it up and walked away. In any case, please ask Owlman what kind of things he would suggest to deconflict or better yet, avoid having to shoot at them or blow them up. Sure, maybe they were bad ones, but I personally think that they are monsters, and I don't want them around me. Some people are probably stuck in a similar lousy situation like this and need some advice from, quote, the expert, end quote, on what to do. I've seen one briefly from about 200 feet and had them nearby, but I never want to see one up close, or at least not the ones around here. Thank you for any help. Please call me Jim. Okay, Jim. I don't know if the Owl Man would be a, quote, expert, end quote, on, on that. I do know that Scott Carpenter's had a lot of good success helping people with rural properties for sure, so you might want to swing that way. And furthermore, though, if you haven't heard from him in a year, but you're looking for advice, I think possibly you should go do a little digging, find out what his story is, where he is, what's the situation, update, and maybe send it on over, right? Maybe even turn him onto this channel. He can listen to this for a little bit of advice. But I have a feeling that once they have established with you that they are there, I don't think humans have too much of a choice in anything. But what I understand is you need to make peace. You need to make, from what I understand, if it is the Sabe people that we're talking about, people need to make peace, right? And agree to share the land and respect each other and not try any weird shit, right? Excuse me. It works for me. Works for a lot of people. Letting them know you're just here to live your life and have fun, and you don't give a shit about them. You don't need to be exposing them or bringing them any attention from anybody else. It works, right? So good luck. Good luck out there, man. And see if you can, though. See if you can find that man. And fill us in on what's up. Now. All right, here we go. Let me mark this as red. Coincidentally, listen to this. This one's titled Buckle Up. This is very long, from the Owl Man. All right. Steve, I was debating if I should be writing this or not, but I figure it'll do more good than harm. Once again, it is information I have shared previously. I think as you read this publicly, try to apply it to yourself. Gotcha, man. Thank you. All the information I have shared took about 8 years to compile. Like yourself, I unexpectedly got induced into the Club of No Return by being in the right place at the wrong time. Unlike most people, I was more curious as to what I had witnessed than frightened. I was 36 years old and was birdwatching in Florida, 8 a.m., January 1st, 2000. I was just looking for birds on a cold morning. Ironically, screech owls. The details of my encounter mean nothing to me anymore. It was just the catalyst to where I am now. At this time, I'm 58. I think it took about 4 years to gain the Sabe's trust just by sitting in the dark, allowing them to torment me and my closest friend. It took a few years after that for the mind speak to show up. Those were some scary nights, let me tell you. But things eventually shifted, and the intimidation tactics ended, and everything became more like a game of hide and seek, or hear and seek. All I knew was that it was no longer scary, but became playful. I'm telling you this for several reasons. You cannot just walk out there to where they live and demand answers to questions you may have. There are a multitude of reasons this doesn't work. Number one, they must know who you are and they must test you before they trust you. Number two, they have rules about interacting with us and a clan leader makes that decision. Number three, you may not have the genetic makeup that will facilitate mind speak. I have mentioned there seems to be a pattern and profile to people who can do this. I could be wrong, but I have seen a pattern to this over the years. Number four, the Sabe don't know everything, but they are generally aware of what's going on in their general area. They may not be aware of anything strange going on hundreds of miles away. I tell you all this because communicating with them is more like building a relationship of respect and trust. They do not seem to trust us. In general, they have pretty much learned we seem to eventually betray them. It happens all the time. It usually goes something like this. We gain the trust of an individual. We can't resist the urge to prove to the world they exist. When we then decide to sell them out in some fashion, typically to gain fame, fortune, or vindication. If you really want them to leave you alone, simply betray them. They will stop speaking to you and will just walk away and not bother with you anymore. It appears they are annoyed with pride and ego, which is so easily ensnares us. It is really rare for one of us to go down that road. It's not about writing books about them and such. It's more about exposing them to other humans that trouble them. Imagine feeding a treasure map to a lost gold mine and you find it. Imagine finding a treasure map to a lost gold mine and you find it. How many people can keep that to themselves? What happens if you tell one person? All it takes is one person and your treasure is lost to you. Communication with them is on their terms. Keeping it going depends on you. If you make a promise to them, do not break it. I don't care what it is. My promise has been to never expose this clan to strangers ever again. I've kept that promise for over 10 years. I only expose them to my trusted family members because they have exposed their family to me. It is my way to honor them back as they have honored me. I was once told by them, quote, "A friend of yours is a friend of ours," end quote. I replied, "No, I'll never trust any friends of mine to keep your home secret. They will tell others, and others will come looking. I told them I will only show your people my family, never strangers. I've kept my word, and because of that, they have shown themselves to my sister, my daughters, and now my wife. I've only been married for 2 years, and I slowly introduced my wife to them in increments when we dated. I never wanted my wife to get a big surprise when we were out in wild places. My wife has several grown children, and I have introduced one of her daughters to them, and unknown to her, she can easily speak to them through mind speak. When the time comes, my grandchildren will be introduced to them. I do not want anyone in my family to be afraid of them. Some people will not agree with me. That's okay. They can do their thing and I can do mine. My family is going to be aware of them, and they are going to know how to deal with them without all the fear-mongering. I want them to enjoy the outdoors their entire life and to be prepared to deal with one of them when they show up. I am really no one special. I'm a simple man with simple, peaceful life who accidentally ran into these beings, and like you, wanted to know more, so I went looking. I never got PTSD or stopped going to wild places because I saw one. I was just curious as to what I witnessed. The rest of my journey has proven to be a long list of divine appointments with the right people at the right time. I even have a connection to David Paulides that he isn't aware of. I've broken bread with M.K. Davis several times and have spent a little face-to-face time with Scott Nelson. I don't say this to brag, I just look back on all this and everything seems to have been divinely arranged. Nothing in my experiences have been an accident or a coincidence. None of this makes me unique in any way. It has just been a weird ride since 2000. At this time, I feel like I have learned pretty much everything I have wanted to know, but that is just me. My personal interactions with them are now much more like intimate friends who see each other a few times a year and catch up on our personal lives. Yeah, as some chuckleheads would say, warm and fuzzy. There's 2 types of people in this interest. Those who say they will eat you, and those who say, go about your life and live it with a new worldview. The later is much more rewarding. The Sabe are a strange lot, brilliant in some aspects and dumb as a stump in others. The one thing about them I admire more than anything, they really value interpersonal relationships. It is the one thing they really seem to treasure. Material things mean nothing to them. People can't understand why they don't live like us. They think they are primitive brutes, more like animals, because of their appearance. They value the real treasure of life, relationships. I don't know if I need to inform you and everyone else about all this. I want people to understand everything I speak of that took a long time to collect, and if it wasn't for a few select friends along the way, none of this would be made public. I know for a fact this information is vital to all those who have had experiences beyond one walking across the road. Those who think it is nothing but a well-written story, please enjoy. This is not for you. These things are for the people who need real answers to impossible situations. Once these beings show an interest in you, nothing in heaven will stop them from doing that. You may be able to keep them off your porch, but you will never stop them from watching you or following you, and no amount of prayer or rebuking will remove the mark or tag they connect to you. So, learn how to live with it and push past the fear and go back to live life. The Sabe are not interested in eating you. So to your questions. Not all Sabe can do supernatural stuff. Some are just as normal as we are, nothing special. Leadership has to have all the supernatural abilities because it's their job to use those abilities to protect the clan. All the weird things they can do seems to be determined by genetics. At least that's the easy explanation. Mind speak. There are layers to this. Some can do this, some can't. Some can do it over long distances, some cannot. One individual I know can do it over several hundred miles with one another. You have to be within 3 to 5 miles of him to hear you. While another, you have to be within 3 to 5 miles of him to hear you. Some can only hear mind speak but can't broadcast it. Some are not proficient at it and need to use mental images and emotions to convey a message. Just like us, some have better communication skills than others. I do know that the more they communicate with us through this method, the better they become at getting their point across. A side note to this: they communicate so quickly, you may have to tell them to slow it down to where we can grasp what they are saying. They also have the ability to finish your thoughts or sentences before it comes out of your mouth. Yeah, I can't explain that one. Invisibility or cloaking. The Sabe call it walking in the spirit ball. You cannot see them in this state, but they are there. You can see where they are walking. The leaves and brush will move. I have witnessed this several times long before I knew about this phenomenon. You cannot see them with a thermal camera in this state, but you can see their heat signature if they are touching something. I personally saw where their feet touched the ground in this state. How do I know? Because one of the Sabe agreed to allow me to view him in this state. I had 2 witnesses to this event as well. They can appear as the predator, but can't hold that state forever. It just depends on how much energy they are expending. Eventually, when they get tired, it will just stop till they regain their strength, kind of like exerting oneself with a physical activity. While in this state, they can move through objects. This is how they get into our homes without using a door. The density of the object affects the ease in which they can pass through it. For example, it is much more difficult to move through an oak tree versus a fir tree. Brick is harder than glass. If you ask how they do this, they will say, "We don't know, we just do." The Sabe say they cannot stay in that form too long because it seems to take a lot out of them physically. Remember, they are there while in the spirit ball. They have not just vanished. I have no idea how they do this, but I suspect they have the ability to bend light around themselves using vibrations and frequencies. Don't expect them to explain it because they can't. If they can explain this via mind speak, I would not trust whatever was telling you that. I like to think I am educated enough to explain how my circulatory system works, but I can't explain how the heart generates an electric charge and keeps beating. Like I have said, they do not communicate like they have a PhD in quantum physics from Harvard. Portals. Hold on a sec. Portals. They call them windows. For the sake of simplicity, let's just refer to them as portals. They can be in fixed locations or generated. They can open and close them. Imagine these things as if they had a combination lock or keypad code on them, and you need to know the code to open and close it. That's the best way to describe it. They can manipulate the energy of these things in a particular sequence to make it open and close. The Sabe insist it is very dangerous to travel through these things, and our people can't survive going through them alone. Portals are used for travel, mostly from point A to point B on a map on Earth. In the Sabe own words, if I were to walk across to the other side of this creek, I can open a window and move through. But the distance inside may take longer than if I decided to just walk across. If this is the case, distance inside a portal is not dependent on the physical distance in our space. Portals can also be used to go to another place. I do not know if there are multiple places meaning in our realm. The Sabe explain it like this. If you travel through a window, you may find a beautiful place to live. The weather will be nice and there is plenty of food. Then you'll discover that there are other creatures there that will eat you, and they are too powerful to fight, and you have to leave. If this is true, it sure is not a place on Earth that we know of. Portals are dangerous. Most Sabe refuse to travel this way. In order to navigate to where you want to go, you have to know how to get there. Imagine riding a subway train. You get on, but have no idea where the train's destination is. Imagine that a train has multiple stops. If you get off at the wrong stop, you're going to be lost. It takes trial and error to navigate. So, let's say you as a human are tagged by one of them. They recognize your vibration, vibrational/frequency energy signature. They will open a portal and find you no matter where you are by locating the signal you're broadcasting. I guess kind of like bloodhound tracking. Bloodhound tracking a scent. So they go through this portal and navigate towards your signal. Imagine something like a homing beacon. That is the best way I can describe it. Steve, you mentioned the one Sabe who found himself in a valley in daylight, panicking, looking for cover. Best guess, he got off at the wrong stop. He screwed up in navigation and found himself in a bad predicament. It's possible he just wanted it to open in the tree line and miscalculated. It may also describe the one Sabe you mentioned that was seen staring in amazement at the blazing fire of a methane tower in an oil field in British Columbia. He, in all honesty, may never have seen such a sight in the area he was from. None of these mean they came from another planet or dimension. Most Sabe do not want to travel through portals because of those difficulties. They also speak of meeting their entities in those portals. Sorry, I keep screwing up. These glasses, I gotta take a beating, these spare ones. They also speak of meeting other entities in those portals, namely those things we call aliens. The ones who use portals often are called travelers. I've mentioned travelers before. The Sabe will tell you to beware the travelers. Travelers are considered strong, brave, and courageous, or dangerous. It has risks that only the strongest, bravest, or desperate will take. What makes travelers potentially dangerous is they can be criminals who are on the run from justice. Travelers have no rules or clan allegiance, and if they have committed a crime, they are being pursued by the Sabe's version of what I call a goon squad. I guess a posse would be more fitting. The traveler that is wanted for a crime is being pursued for the death penalty. Sad thing is, we have no idea who a traveler is or not. I do know travelers are typically alone. Who or what is taking people in wild places? I've asked them this question years ago when David Paulides only had 2 missing 411 books. Here's where it gets difficult to explain. There seems to be many sources of this phenomena. They blame Dogman right out of the gate. They claim the wolf creatures will eat us and we will never be found again. The Sabes fear they are blamed for this. Remember, they call them wolf creatures, and the ones here hate them. They also say we are responsible for some of that because they see us taking our own people. They also say the star people will take us as they take them, and they can't figure out why we do not know of the star people. They can't understand why we think star people don't exist. I've told them our leaders do not share the truth with us. They also say if we go into an open portal alone, we will not survive, and portals can be left open either by accident or on purpose. Now, there is something everyone should know. If possible, some of them will rescue or help us in these missing situations. There's a case in one of David's missing 411 books where the Sabe in my area rescued someone. This individual was presumed dead from an accident. This individual was found days later with no memory of what happened. As Dave has mentioned in his books, this person was more or less placed in front of a rescue team in an area that was previously searched. I asked about this incident because it was widely publicized when it happened a few years prior. The Sabe specifically said this: yes, that sounds like something we would do. They did not abduct this person. They found this person, kept them safe until they could place said person in front of the other people that were searching. But they wiped that person's memory of their involvement in that said person's rescue. I'm fairly confident the clan I am involved with knew of this incident, but they themselves had nothing to do with the whole thing. The incident was close enough for them to know about it. There is another clan that is in that area, and they do know each other. They are paranoid of touching or moving our dead bodies when found in their areas because they fear being blamed for it. They are well aware that when one of our own is missing or found dead in their home, we swarm like angry hornets in numbers that are hard to hide from. I highly suspect the Sabe are responsible for those missing people who are found alive with no memory and are placed in an area where they will be found. I also think they do this with some of those missing people who are found dead. That doesn't mean they abducted or killed these people. It just means they wanted their bodies found, either out of respect or fear of being blamed. I base this opinion on the conversation I mentioned above. I've never explored this missing person stuff with them at length. They often speak of seeing our people come in the forest, dumping bodies and or raping women. This sort of thing may seem foreign to many of your listeners, but in woodlands close to urban centers, it is not uncommon. I know for a fact they can mess with your mind. They can make you forget things, and they can make you see things that are not really what they appear to be. And this is why people think they are shapeshifters. They will make you think you've seen something else, but not one of them. You have had plenty of people write in to tell you they witnessed things of this nature. I simply call this Jedi mind tricks. I recently saw one in November with my stepdaughter that tried to convince me he was a white-tailed deer. My stepdaughter saw him as well, but she told me that it was not a deer. Steve, you've asked about the other things the Sabes speak of. I will make this short as possible. Dogman/wolf creatures. I've spoken of these before. Yes, they are real. They are not as numerous as the Sabe. The Sabe in my area hate them with a vengeance and will seek to kill them before they move into the area. They insist these wolf things are a people too. They say they can do everything they can do. This is a difficult thing to swallow, but I do not think they are lying about this. Night creatures. Yes, those sickly, pale, skinny things some have written to you about. The Sabe call them the night creatures. The Sabe find them easy to kill. A rock to their head, if I recall. They are only dangerous to them if they are sleeping. Night creatures seem to have a fondness for blood. Yeah, I know it sounds ridiculous. I don't know much more than that. Hey, and a quick note on that. If they are easy to kill with a rock and they hate them, ask them if they might want to kill one and leave in my front yard for me. I'm just kidding, sort of. The star people. 4 different kinds. We call them aliens. In reality, they seem to be interdimensional beings. They all can be killed, wounded, and bleed. These things are not spirits. The Sabe do not like them. They try to hide from them when they show up. In their words, quote, "When the star people come, we hide. We cannot speak to each other or they will find us," end quote. Meaning all these so-called aliens can speak telepathically and can locate the Sabe if they speak with their minds. They insist they can avoid them if they are careful. I can't recall if they have physically engaged them in a fight. They mention some types of handheld weapons that cause a lot of pain. I can only remember them speaking of some type of battle they had with what they call the dragon people. In our world, it's what is called a reptilian. I will tell you this stuff is hard for me to swallow at times. I keep saying I do not necessarily believe them, but I never dismiss it either. I learned a long time ago to never dismiss something no matter how insane it may sound. I don't plan on getting PTSD from experiencing something I'm not aware of. There are some lesser-known beings, but in all fairness, I can't recall the details. These other beings are not as common. There is a goat-headed thing, a cat-like beings, little hairy people. Sabe in different regions may be more familiar with these things. I guess I need to get an update from them on these. Please remember, most of this information was gathered several years ago. I took notes of all the conversations, but the information flowed so quickly, it's hard to get it all down. Everything I have shared has really been from my memory. If I had greater details on these things, I would share them. They're interested in women and children, and this one's complex. To us, we see it as if they are stalkers. On the surface, it looks like that. I'll give you my opinion on this because I never asked them why this is, but I do know why they seem to seek out some of us, and they are mostly women and children, sometimes children. There is this pattern when human women seem more likely to communicate with them. Children too. The women in my family are gifted, for lack of a better term. The world would call it psychic. The Christian circles, in Christian circles, these women are prophetic, empathic, or seers. To a lesser degree, women in general seem to naturally be turned into unseen forces. Women's intuition, so to speak. I think every man who ever had a long-term relationship can understand this. Something in a woman's spirit, or how her brain waves broadcast, attract the Sabe. In all honesty, they are trying to assess if they can speak to these women, but try to approach them without freaking them out. This is damn near impossible because of their appearance, and because we have been brainwashed for millennia that a monster is a big, hairy thing that has human form. Children are approached for a similar reason. Young children are not taught to be afraid of them, any more than they are afraid of insects. Parents teach children what to be afraid of. When young children see them, they typically show childlike curiosity. The Sabe see their children just as we see ours, and that is something in common they know we share. Children's brainwaves are heavy on the theta pattern, which is what fuels their imaginations. However, mind-speaking communication works, it seems. Theta and delta patterns are much easier to communicate with. As we get older, our brainwaves move to more difficult patterns that manifest in logic and reason, which means most men are not prone to the mind-speak abilities. These are my theories based on the patterns I have seen and the people I have met. We as humans automatically think the big hairy monsters want to kidnap the women and the children. Why can't we as people try to approach things with a deeper understanding and than just automatically shifting into fear, foreboding, and disaster? Don't get me wrong, I understand why we want to protect women and children, but sometimes we have to step back and try to see a different perspective and angle to figure out solutions to perceived problems. It is easier to just get the gun instead of assessing a situation. Where they live here. That is the one thing I will never publicly share. If they have one vulnerability, it is that. If you are being intimidated with really defensive behavior to get you to leave an area, you're in a spot they don't want you in. That area will be different in each type of environment. In general, it will be an area that we typically do not go, cannot reach, and hidden so well you would miss it. They do not live in caves. They are too cold and have no escape route if trapped inside. Maybe some use caves, especially in desert regions, but they would need a back exit to escape. They will not live in a large group, as First Nations people did. Picture instead individual nuclear families in a spread out neighborhood, but not right next to each other. Imagine a clan of 30 individuals spread out over a large area in the most difficult, rugged, hidden, out-of-way place you could think of. Then they will conceal it the best way they can with logs, boulders, brush, and branches. If you feel their pressure on one side of a valley or mountain and not on the other side, it is a pretty good idea to stay away from that area. I do know if you find their living quarters, they will most likely abandon it. They don't make stick structures or nests to live in. The people who subscribe to that think they are all apes. If you want to know exact details, I'll share that with you privately. I have no doubts about your ability to track, but I know for a fact you need to know what you're looking for before you find it. Steve, I know without a shadow of a doubt, the Sabe that have been watching you for years and most likely have a name for you. What that is, I have no idea. The only way you will find that out is from someone who lives near you who has the ability to speak to them, and they may be able to tell you themselves. The Sabe who live in areas you have never seen, the Sabe who live in areas who have never seen you will not be familiar with you. I highly doubt any Sabe in the States knows who you are. They have no idea what you are doing by reading emails, and they sure will not see that as important. The ones throwing rocks at you while you read emails on a quad have no clue what that's about. I hate to tell you this, I don't think they would see you as an important person to them. Oh, not a doubt in my mind. Not that I am. You never built a relationship with them. You've pretty much made your intentions known over the years, and they will respect that as long as you wish. You are without a doubt tagged, but I have no idea what you carry with that. I suspect they have tagged you simply as a non-threat. You have not intended to hurt or hunt them, so all of them in the areas you go on adventures in will see you as somewhat safe and just monitor you from afar. If you did forge a friendship with them, your name would spread in larger circle, but not throughout the entire continent. Like us, they will talk amongst themselves about you, and more of them may want to get a glimpse of you or go by your home just to get a peek at how you live. I only speak of this because you should be aware of it if you seek them out. There are some of us who know they seem to know or at least hear of. Sorry, one more time. I get a little blurry here. There are some of us who they seem to all know or at least hear of. The late Mary Green was known by some of the Sabe here, but it is not universal. Even though I am tagged, no matter where I go, they show up, or I can at least feel them. They all don't know me, but they seem to consider me a friend to their people. Some have heard of me, some have not. Whatever my tagging carries, they have peace about me. This doesn't mean I'm famous among them. I'm not. All I know is whatever I carry on that tag does not alarm them. When I tell them my name, they will actually vet me by seeking out others who may have heard of me. They will check your credentials, so to speak. I'll leave you with one last thing. Find the name of a clan leader who is aware of you. If you are fortunate to get his name, you can name drop that in any area you go to where you may feel uncomfortable. They will really respect that and honor your requests. They do not give their name out lightly like we do. To them, names have power and meaning. They carry weight and responsibility. Unlike some of your subscribers, I think you are a man that can handle a relationship with these beings. I actually think it would be a good considering you live in grizzly country. You are not a man governed by fear, and they will respect and honor that. You know it's only a matter of time before you run into one again, and I agree. You're going to handle that exceptionally well because of all the knowledge you gained here. You just have to prepare Sarah and her kids for that. If I could do it, I know you could do it a million times better than I. The choice is always yours. You'd be surprised at how the Sabe can change your life for the better. People don't want to hear that. It's not something they do to you. They just make you see the world in a whole different way. Your perception of reality will change for the better. Once again, thank you for reading this. I know it was long. Blessings to all who have eyes to see and ears to hear the Owlman. And there we go. Absolutely appreciate you, man. Big time. Absolutely appreciate you and everything you share. It's a lot of time, and it's a very, very, very generous act. And I know it's helping a lot of people. Although you know as well as I do, there's a shit pile of people that are shaking their head. Changing the channel because they're possibly here just for some entertainment. I think I've realized quite a bit of what you share. I've realized on my own in a way. I know that I've learned about the pressure thing for certain. I've also learned about the tagging thing for certain on my own. And I also have realized a little while back that if I decided to, I would probably get in some kind of communication with them if I decided one day, which I haven't. I've always made it, just for me personally, I've always made it clear, just leave me alone. I don't want to be freaked out. I don't want to be chased out here. Just let me do my thing. But anyway, I wonder how many people here are actually picking up what is being put down. I wonder how many people here are realizing that this journey has really has gone quite a ways here, don't you guys think? And hopefully by now, with the people who are here that are actually absorbing the information shared, that maybe you can possibly see why I came down so heavy in the beginning on the majority of the so-called big names in the Bigfoot community, right? Now that you know what, you are learning, everybody here is learning a lot. And if you are seriously, truly learning, then you will know that the majority of those names are just fraudulent pricks, right? They've been misleading, helping everybody go in circles and doing absolute dumbass. And when it comes to these people, disrespectful shit nonstop, right? But anyways, that's another topic for another time, possibly for some other people. I've got 2 soaking wet pygmy goats standing here looking at me. It's hard not to laugh sometimes, and when you look down and they're both giving you that goofy stare. Anyway, there's a lot there to munch on, but everything seems to be coming together for me anyway. Hopefully for a lot of people out there as well. There's just so much good first-hand knowledge coming our way, and my puzzle is getting real tight. Meaning I don't have too much space left for me. Very interesting. So many generous people have come out and shared here, don't you think? And I wonder, to you all, man, the Arizona gang, handful of other people who know a lot. I wonder if any of the people. I wonder how many people who are saturated with a lot more knowledge than us came forward here on this channel for the first time and don't have any history in contacting the so-called big names in the past. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know if I'm even saying that right. Like, I wonder how many of you came here and finally opened up because you realized it was a safe place and possibly the right time to do it, and never did previously. That'd be interesting. There probably is places online similar to this. I don't know. I don't really have time to look, and I don't really have that much interest either. I have all my interest for me has been focused to all of you and nowhere else. I've kicked everything to the curb for knowledge gaining except from the people, right? Just from the people. Anyways, I'm babbling. I'm getting a little distracted. I gotta go. Hope you guys enjoy the scenery. And yes, these are mountains where basically everywhere I've filmed has had some kind of a sighting experience. And this is a lot of the country that we share with these people that we know little of, and probably better off that way, because look at what happens to all the communities, societies of people, mainly the First Nations people, who didn't need the government to survive. Look what happened to them. The government annihilated them, right? The government doesn't like people that don't need them or don't listen to them at all, obviously. Another topic. Anyway, I'm gonna go. I'm back home. I'll be back tomorrow. Be safe out there.